Hi Year 3. So today for English, we're going to be carrying on with our book, The Switcher, that we've been reading on Purple Mash. Now we are on chapter 3 today. So if you haven't read chapter 3 yet, then I would like you to pause the video and then go away and read it and then come back and carry on with the video once you have read it, because I don't want to give anything away in what we're going to be talking about on the video before you've had a chance to read chapter 3. So if you haven't read it, go and read it. Hope you enjoy it, and then you can come back and catch up with me later. So if you're still with me, then you obviously have read chapter 3, or you've gone away and you have come back to join us again. So chapter 3 was quite an interesting chapter because during that chapter, both Ben and Rocky were trying to get used to their new ways in their new roles that they had. So Rocky was trying to get used to being a little boy, and Ben was trying to get used to being a dog, and coming across all sorts of bizarre situations and feelings that they were having about their new role. I think it would probably be fair to say that Rocky was probably enjoying his life as a little boy a little bit more than Ben was enjoying his life as a dog. But we'll have to see how it goes on in the future chapters to see whether that carries on in the same way or not. Now, normally when we've read a chapter together, we would ask you to do the comprehension questions that are on Purple Mash as a bit of a follow-up, just to make sure that you've understood what you've read. Now, by all means, you can do those today if you would like to as well. But the main thing that we would like you to do today is actually think about the extension task, so sort of the challenge task that's there, because it actually fits in really nicely with what we have been doing in Year 3, quite a lot before Christmas, when we started thinking about our speech marks and or inverted commas, as we call them sometimes, but that punctuation that we use to show when somebody is speaking. Now, we did a lot before Christmas when we looked at twits, and we did a conversation between Mr. Twit and Mrs. Twit. And we've also sort of touched upon it again during your home learning time as well, when we've been talking about your Coming of the Romans story that you did as well last week, where we encouraged you to perhaps use a little bit of speech, because it's always good practice just to make sure that you are thinking about what punctuation is needed and how we use it and how we set it out. So the task that we're going to do today as a follow-on from chapter 3 fits in really nicely with that. So I'm going to share the screen with you now, and I'm going to take you into Purple Mash, which is where you should be. So this here, as we can see, is chapter 3. So hopefully you've read your chapter 3 now, and we know what's been going on. So these are all your different comprehension things that you can do if you would like to, as a bit of an extra, if you get a chance to today. But it's a conversation that we are going to be interested in doing today, okay? So I'm going to launch this app. Now, you should have it in your folder as a to-do task, but if you haven't got it saved in there for whatever reason, I know sometimes it doesn't always save it in the right way, then you can just open this app in the same way as you just seen me do there, and you can still save it into your work folder. So, but hopefully it should be saved in there for you to do anyway. So we can see that we have got in front of us a page which we're going to be writing, which is a conversation. So we are going to be writing the conversation that Ben's mum and dad had once they had discovered Rocky sat on the toilet at the end of chapter 3, which was quite a shock for Dad. He couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. And as we left chapter 3, he was calling Ben's mum to come and see what he could see in front of him. Okay, so in fact, we get the opening of our conversation on here is the last line that we come across in the chapter. "Sally," Dad yelled, "come quickly. You are not going to believe this." And so what we're going to do, or what you're going to do today, is we're going to develop that conversation. We're going to extend chapter 3 almost to imagine what that conversation was about as it went on. And in doing so, because it's a conversation, because it's spoken words, we're going to be using our speech punctuation. So over on the left-hand side of the screen, if you've done these before, you'll be familiar with it. There are some prompts there. It says think about. So they're always good just to have a look at before you start any task, just so you can see any ideas that you can use from what they are getting you to think about here. Okay, so it says Sally, who's Ben's mum. So it says, how will Sally, Ben's mum, react when she sees the family dog using the toilet, just like a human? So how is she going to react? Okay, how's she going to respond to that situation? Okay, so we need to make sure we're trying to describe that within that conversation that we're going to be writing. Okay, what's Dad going to say to Sally, so Ben's mum, about the situation? What's he going to say? What is his views or his thoughts? Now he's actually seen it with his own eyes. How is he feeling about it? What questions? So we've got to try and work at keeping this conversation going. So lots of questions that they can ask and answer will help us to keep that conversation going, and it will also help to use our different types of speech punctuation as we go through as well. And it says, obviously, direct speech, we need to remember to place speech marks around all the words that are spoken, so all the words that are said out loud by Ben's mum and dad, we need to put inside our inverted commas. And the other rule that we need to remember as well is a new line when somebody different starts to speak, so we can see how it's being set out nice and clearly. Okay, so those are some just prompts just to think about over on that left hand side there, just to give us our way of thinking. So let's go back to our main page here. So this is what we're going to be adding to as we go through, okay, our task today. So it says, as we sort of touched upon before, this is the last line of the chapter that we've just read. So it says, Sally, Dad yelled, come quickly, you're not going to believe this. So we've now got to imagine Mum is coming into the bathroom and coming to see what all the fuss is about, okay? So we could start by her asking, what are you going on about? What is it? What is it? What do you want me to see? Now, remember, these are our spoken words. So when we are typing on a laptop, we need to make sure that we're using our punctuation just as the same as we would when we are writing it out on a piece of paper. So to get the speech marks, to get the inverted commas that we need, because Ben's mum Sally is going to be responding in a minute, I'm going to need to press the shift button, so what I would use for a capital letter, and then a number 2, because above the number 2, we can actually see, if you look on your keyboard, some speech marks, and you can see now I've got my opening for my speech marks there, okay? So this is ready now for Ben's mum, Sally, to actually start speaking. So she might say, what is all the fuss about? Question mark. And again, I've had to use my shift key there to get my question mark up onto my screen. Okay, so you might have to use your shift button a bit today just to make sure that you're getting the punctuation marks that you want for your conversation that you're doing. So what is all the fuss about? Why are you yelling? Oh, yelling like that? And I need another question mark because she's asking a question mark. Because she's going to finish now, she's asked 2 questions, so she's probably going to be wanting a response now. We're going to close our speech marks again. So again, I'm using my shift button and I'm pressing my number 2, and I can see there that I've got my close the speech marks. So what is all the fuss about? Why are you yelling like that? Replied, don't forget, we need to say who's speaking. Replied Sally. Okay, so we're now going to think about what is Dad going to say in response? how is he going to respond to what she's saying? Okay, how's he going to explain what he can see? Again, I'm going to use my speech marks to start with. You need to come and see for yourself. He doesn't know how to explain it. Such an unusual thing he's seen. You need to come and see for yourself. Come quickly. I'm going to put an exclamation mark there because he's being really adamant in what he's saying. Come quickly. I've already said that to you once. You're still not here. Come quickly. So, close of speech marks. So you need to come and see for yourself. Come quickly, shouted Dad. Now, I think we need to get Mum into the bathroom now so she can see what's actually going on. Okay, so we can say Mum walked into bathroom. She stared. Short sentence, she stared. Now she's going to try and speak. What on earth is Rocky doing on the toilet? Mum said in a confused voice. So look, we're getting questions in. We need to try and extend this conversation by asking lots of questions. And they're going to try, and between the two of them, work out what is going on. What are they going to do with the fact that their dog is sat on a toilet? Maybe they might want to think about entering Britain's Got Talent. It's a new trick. No one's ever seen this before. Who's taught him to do that? Okay, they know that Ben has been trying to teach him some tricks to do. Maybe they think that Ben has managed to teach him to do this. There's lots of questions that we can explore, okay, as this conversation develops, okay. You need to, in the way that we've started off here, continue that conversation. Okay, so what I've done on there is just an idea. You don't have to do this. You can come up with your own ideas, your own conversation. But it's really important that we are thinking about the punctuation, how we're setting it out. Because remember, it's not just the 66 and the 99 that we need to be using. We need to be thinking about question marks. We need to be thinking about our exclamation marks as well. Okay, so we need to be including all of those different things. Now, just to help remind you, if I just show you some things I put in the folder to help you today. One of the things that is in the folder is a little guide, really. So this is a little sheet that you can have in front of you that just reminds you about the different ways in which we can set speech out and the different ways in which we need to use punctuation with our speech. Okay, because remember, it's not just our 66 and our 99s. So, well done, otters, comma, you have worked well today, comma, and all of that is inside the inverted commas, said Mrs. Davis. We need to have the reporting clause. We need to say who is speaking. So it will be said Mrs. Davis. But remember, just before that 99, there's a comma there that just shows that we're having a slight pause because the speech punctuation is finished, but I need to finish off my sentence by saying who is speaking. So we have the full stop right at the very end after Mrs. Davis. Shall we make a pom-pom? Inside the inverted commas, but that's a question. So before the 99 at the end, we need a question mark there. Shall we make a pom-pom? Asked Mrs. Share. For those of you in Otters, you will know that Mrs. Share likes to make a pom-pom. So that's a fantastic question for her to be asking. Squirrels I've done one especially for you with Mrs. Little as well, so you can go and have a see what I thought Mrs. Little might like to ask you. But we need a question mark. We need to show what that this is the question that's being asked. Okay, Miss Brogan whispered, comma, would you like some help with that? Question mark. And remember, the spoken words are going inside the inverted commas, because those are our spoken words. But this is a slightly different way of setting it out, because look, we've got who is speaking here at the beginning of our sentence. So we're saying Miss Brogan whispered, not using said all the time, some different words. Miss Brogan whispered, comma, would you like some help with that? So you can change the layout of your speech. Sometimes you can say who is speaking first and then have the spoken words after. Sometimes you can do it the other way around. Sometimes you can change things by not always saying said. We can use different words for said. So there's lots of different ways in which you can use it. So if you have that sheet in front of you as you are typing out your conversation between Ben's mum and dad, that might just help you a little bit. We've also, to try and help to remind you as well, also in the folder, we have got for you as well a success criteria. Now your success criteria, you can see here, explains to you, reminds you of what the task is. So Ben's dad has just seen Rocky, in inverted commas, because it's not really Rocky, is it? But they think it is, sat on the toilet. He's very shocked. He calls for Ben's mum to see for herself this unusual scene. Write a passage of dialogue, so a conversation between the two of them. So you must write that conversation. You must use your speech marks around the words the characters say out loud, and you must use your full stops in capital letters. So starts of sentences, we need a capital letter. For names, we need capital letters, and so on. So using all those rules that we should be using normally. You also should use other punctuation to support the spoken words. So we've just talked about you might need to use a question mark. Sometimes you might need to use an exclamation mark. You might need to use a comma. Use a new line when the character is replying. So when somebody else speaks. Use joint handwriting if you are writing it out, because I will come back onto that one in a second, and then close speech marks after punctuation. So remember, if you are using your question mark or exclamation mark, then you are going to put down your 99 after that punctuation mark that you're using. Use interesting words for said. We don't just want said all the time, it's boring. Or use adjectives and adverbs. So you can use those within your writing as well, just to describe things a little bit more and set the scene. So with your success criteria, with your guide, your prompt guide, you should hopefully be in a good position to be able to write your conversation between mum and dad. Okay, so let me just take you back to conversation that we had got to so far. So that was sort of how it was looking so far at the moment. Now remember, we said to keep this going, we need to have lots of questions. We need to know what they're thinking about. Yes, this is set around a toilet. We don't need to be finding out too much about exactly what Rocky is doing on the toilet. Don't need to know about the wee and the poo situation particularly. Try and make sure that we are thinking about the questions that are being asked, how mum and dad are responding to what they can see in front of them, okay, and how they're trying to get their head around how Rocky has managed to do this. Has somebody taught him? Has he been watching? What are we going to do? Do we need to take him to the vets? Is this normal? All those sort of questions are going to be going round in their heads, all right? So that's what we want to hear, and that's how you're going to keep that conversation going, okay? So on Purple Mash, you're going to type that out. Now, on the success criteria, it says that if you save it on Purple Mash, then we can have a look at it, and then we will give you a little bit of feedback on Purple Mash. So you won't have to email it to us like you've been doing with your English writing for the last few weeks. You can save it on there, and then we can see it, and we can type you a little message back just to say how we think you've got on with using all of your punctuation. Okay. If, however, there is a problem, because sometimes I know there's a little bit of a problem with loading things up or so on, then on the success criteria, one of the things that you could be working on was your handwriting. So if you can write it out as a conversation, if you want to, in your book, and then take a picture of it in the normal way. Some of you might prefer to do that rather than doing it on Purple Mash here. So it's an option of which way round you prefer to do it for today. Okay, it's entirely up to you. But we look forward to seeing your conversations. We look forward to hearing what your ideas are for how you're going to extend what they are doing. And of course, we will continue reading the Switcher after half term. It will be, oh no, it won't be after half term. No, we've still got one more week before half term. I'm getting ahead of myself there. So we'll continue reading Switcher next week and find out what happens after that. So have a good day. We look forward to seeing conversations. Take care. Bye.